Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Please let me welcome you to yet another webinar of our series. As usual, we are very excited to have a great topic and such amazing presenters. I'm really looking forward to all the great information we are about to hear. As you can see on the screen right now, the title of the session is Mythbusters, Myths and Realities about Nearshoring. And over the next hour or so, we will be presenting and discussing some of the most common myths and misconceptions about outsourcing services to Latin America. Just let me please introduce myself first. My name is Rebecca Hassan, and I am the Executive Director of Nearshoring Executive Alliance. We are co-hosting this webinar today with iTexico, one of our members. And for those of you who are not yet familiar with us, Nearshoring Executive Alliance is the industry association for the IT services and business process outsourcing sector in Latin America. We are a nonprofit organization founded by a broad selection of industry leaders with the objective of creating awareness of the capabilities of the region and increasing the use of the nearshore delivery model. So I believe that this topic is very relevant. It's very important both for service buyers and service providers. When it comes to service buyers, this is an opportunity to create awareness of what Latin America really is, and on Latin America really has to offer. Just to give you a little bit of background on a recent survey that we conducted a few months back. So the Nearshoring Executive Alliance partnered with Sourcing Industry Group to create a survey to poll executives, C-level executives from buy-side companies. And we asked them what the single greatest reason preventing them from including or expanding their nearshore services with Latin American vendors was. And the result showed us that 32.26% of them were not investing in Latin America because they were either lack of awareness or lack of focus on the region. And then another 29.3% responded that their main concern was the economic fluctuation. So at least with this kind of initiatives, this is an effort to bring awareness of create more awareness of the region. Then for providers, I think that this information is relevant for them because they can use a lot of what we are going to say to better present themselves and to be ready to answer some of the questions that they will face most commonly. Of course, we are only able to do this kind of sessions thanks to our members, thanks to the support of our members. And these are two main things that are really part of our mission: creating awareness and helping our providers better present themselves. Again, if you are not very familiar with Nearshoring Executive Alliance yet, we have a couple of busy months ahead of us, and we'll be on the road. If you are in any of the events that I am about to mention right now, don't be shy. Come and talk to us. We would love to hear from you. We will be at the SIG Sourcing Industry Group Global Executive Summit in Huntington Beach, California, October 27 to 29. And then we will be at Outsource to LAC in Guadalajara, Mexico, November 11 to 13. So hopefully a lot of you will be there, and feel free to approach us. That's what we want to do. Now, with that being said, let me introduce you to our great presenters. And I cannot be more thankful for their help and their support. And even before I introduce them, they are really experienced. They've been doing nearshore services and global services for a long time. So this is a great opportunity for you to ask your questions. Send anything you would like to know and learn from them. They are here to answer those questions for us. So the more questions we have, the more dynamic and the more fun this webinar will be. So I'm going to go through I could say a lot about them, but I'm just going to read a really short bio on them. First, we have Francisco Avedravo. He's the VP of Information Development at Oracle Corporation. He has over 30 years of experience working with high-tech companies in Silicon Valley. He currently leads a global team of 450 user assistant developers, software developers, curriculum developers, and managers across the globe. Over the last 4 years, Francisco has been a vital leader in the foundation of the new Oracle Development Center in Guadalajara, Mexico, which currently hosts over 600 developers. So, thank you, Francisco.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Also with us is Anurag Kumar. He's the CEO of iTexico. And Anurag is a global technology and management professional with a passion for solving complex business problems. He has worked in leadership positions at Global 500 and early stage companies in the US, India, and Mexico. iTexico is his fifth technology startup. In addition to iTexico, he mentors early stage founders, CEOs, and is very active in the nonprofit community. And last but not least, we have Patrick Stam, who's the Senior VP of Global Operations at United Healthcare. And Patrick is also one of the Nearshoring Executive Alliance board members. He's responsible for global ops, payment integrity, and advanced analytics for United Healthcare benefit operations. He works with global operational areas to ensure that they have the global capabilities needed to support delivery of high-quality service for United Healthcare customers and provides a capable team of advanced operations researchers and engineers to improve organizational effectiveness and efficiency.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Anurag. I didn't give you the chance, but I will give you a chance to speak in a second. When as I mentioned, Anurag or iTexico is co-hosting this webinar with us, and I would like to let Anurag talk briefly about the company before we get to the rest.
Sure. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the NEA webinar. I really appreciate Rebecca and NEA to give us an opportunity to discuss our experiences and our backgrounds with you all. And I hope you learned something. Please ask as many questions as you can. In addition to Patrick and Francisco and myself, even Rebecca has a lot of experience with nearshoring. She actually lives in Nicaragua. You won't guess it by the way she speaks, but she has a lot of experience working with the providers and the buyers and with the regions. So she travels a lot, and I think her experience is probably the broadest of us all. So I'll get started. I'll be kind of managing this webinar today. I have a small presentation, but I'm hoping it's going to be very interactive. So again, I'm with iTexico. I actually live in Austin, Texas. Just as a background and why we are doing this, almost 33 years ago, I was actually a software developer like some of you with a company called Tata Burroughs, which became Tata Consultancy Services. And I was actually sent to US to work on software project. That was the early stage of outsourcing, where there was no internet, there was no email. The only way to collaborate was to fly people around the world. And since then, I've worked with companies like KPMG, IBM, Dell, in IT services, working with teams in India, Europe, and of course, US. I also got an opportunity to be the CEO of 2 IT services companies with delivery centers in India. So all that experience has provided me great insight into managing outsourcing operations with distributed teams in multiple continents. Almost 5 years ago, we started on a journey to provide software services with a delivery center in Guadalajara, Mexico. My first foray into nearshoring. We have grown well, even got into Inc. 500. As you can see, at #1 NEA, we have over 120 people, 20 professionals, and I've worked with over 100 clients in US so far. I had thought that providing services from Mexico would be a straightforward experience to my clients. After all, it's just another place where great software developers can provide good outcomes to clients. The journey has not been exactly that smooth, and we have encountered some roadblocks, many misperceptions, many myths about nearshoring, and in many cases about having software teams in Mexico and other Latin American countries. And that's the experience I want to share with you, address some of the myths we have encountered, and I'm sure you have run into some of them. But before we start, Rebecca, can we do a quick, brief poll and understand our audience and see what their perceptions are before I start mine?
Yes, for sure. So we're going to launch a quick poll right now, and kind of, I think it should be open. Yes, right now. So, in your experience, what is the single most spread out myth about nearshoring related to? Is it lack of available talent? Is it safety concerns about the region? Is it the idea that nearshore is higher cost than offshore? Or lack of process maturity, as in our providers do not have the same level of maturity that India or the rest. So, just going to give a couple more seconds or so for the attendees to answer before I close the poll, and it'll be interesting to see what we think. So I have 74% of the voters voting. So it's to okay. So I think I'm gonna get ready to close the poll now. And it's interesting that 39% said that it's lack of available talent, 28% is higher cost, 22% safety concerns, and 11% lack of process maturity.
That is fascinating. That is really fascinating. Not a whole lot different from what we have encountered. So let me get to share with you 8 myths. The way we'll operate today is I'm going to talk about 4 myths. I'll have Patrick and Francisco provide their feedback. If you have some questions in the meantime, we'll address that, and then we'll go to the second half of the webinar. All right, so the first myth. I just want to set some stage. I know we're talking about Latin America, I know we're talking about nearshore, and I know we are in US, and we think nearshore is Latin America. So I just want to share with you that nearshore is not a foreign concept. If you look at the definition of nearshore in Wikipedia, it's actually transfer of business or IT processes to companies in a nearby country, often sharing a border, where both parties expect to benefit from some dimensions: proximity, time zone, cultural, language, economic, political, or sometimes historic. And the service that is being sourced may be a business process or software development. So what I want to share with you is that nearshoring is actually clustered. There are nearshore centers in Ukraine, Europe, like Ukraine, like Belarus, Romania, Czech Republic, Russia, typically working with clients in UK, Germany, France. There is a cluster of nearshore centers in North America, which, by the way, includes Canada, and of course Mexico, Brazil, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Colombia, Peru, a lot of countries. For Asia, there is actually a nearshore cluster. A lot of companies in Japan will nearshore to China, and India, and Malaysia, and Vietnam, and Philippines. So nearshoring is actually very common, and there are options for buyers and providers based on the physical and other linkages. Today we are actually going to focus a bit more on Latin America, because for US that is where nearshoring tends to happen, and share with you why it may make sense to go to those geographies. So that's the first myth. Nearshoring is actually a lot broader than you might have thought. Next, please. All right, so so my own background, and some of you might have guessed, I actually am originally from India, and I've been in the US for a long time, 33 years actually. So I'm going to share with you my experience in software space. So one of the first things I encountered when we started offering services with teams in Mexico was this reaction. Really? You have software developers in Mexico? Why is your team not in India? Or I'm sure you have a larger team, a larger operation in India. So first I thought perhaps it's because I'm originally from India and folks were simply surprised, or because I speak almost zero Spanish even now. And then many people started telling me, you know, you're the first company we have met who has nearshore teams in Mexico. Or some even said, we didn't know that there are programmers in Mexico. And I said, wow, that is surprising. So what I can tell you is, you know, India is not the only place you can do outsourcing. There is a lot of great talent in other countries, including Latin America. Talent is mobile. They do relocate for all the right reasons. In Mexico, for example, we have employees from literally all over the world. We have employees from India, Pakistan, Cuba, Argentina, Europe, Croatia. Uh, we have employees, and the talent is there everywhere. The other thing I want to just share with you is the talent in new technologies is still being developed, whether it's mobile or cloud or analytics, or containers or meme. These are all fairly new developments, and the talent is can be anywhere in the world right now, not necessarily in a specific geography. Uh, Also, the outsourcing and nearshoring services have matured significantly in LATAM. We'll talk about that. And then I want to just share with you the next slide is that there are many providers and clients with really significant presence in Latin America. And this is a very, very partial list. The list is much bigger than this, but I just wanted to point out some good names like HP. HP has operations in multiple countries in Latin America, and for a variety of reasons. It's not necessarily for IT or software. It could be for back office, for bilingual capabilities, or just sharing the workload. Citigroup has centers in Argentina, El Salvador, Costa Rica. They just signed a big deal in Mexico with a service provider. Walmart is there, Amazon, Cisco, and Oracle. Francisco is with Oracle, and they are growing. And Cargill, Cognizant, IBM has big presence in Mexico also. In Guadalajara, they have over 4,000 people. And then, interestingly, a lot of service providers from around the world, TCS, Infosys, Luxoft, SCL, Wipro, they have significant presence in Latin America. So this is not something new. It's happening. EXL has bilingual solution centers. So this is happening. This is not new, and hopefully, we see it continue to grow, actually. Next.
You know, Anurag, this is Patrick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll just add something that, you know, this isn't really new at all. You know, 14 years ago, I think I opened my first center in San Salvador, El Salvador, and I think we grew that to about 450 people. Since then, you know, over those years, I've been in 4 different countries in Latin America doing some work, as well as obviously India, Philippines, China, and all the usual suspects. So it's not new. It may be it does have a level of maturity, but I will say that the kind of preferable places do seem to change, you know, 3 or 4 years as new capability, new schools, new population kind of comes online.
Thank you. Absolutely. I was actually in El Salvador last month, and I was surprised. Citibank has a big presence there, and airlines and other companies are moving in. Really surprised. So the third thing I want to share with you is this. It's like outsourcing, nearshoring. It's all the same. And I just want to point out a few things. You know, the myth is whether it's far shore or near shore or outsource, it's all the same. Teams are just in a different geography, and so it should not matter. Well, actually, it does matter. If you think about the benefits of outsourcing, traditional outsourcing, as Patrick just pointed out, one is, of course, additional capabilities, talent. Second is capacity, sometimes capacity on demand. You know, you just need a large project and you need a lot of folks and you just need the capacity. Of course, you can't ignore the cost effectiveness. That was probably the big driver some time back. And then maturity of delivery processes, again, as Patrick pointed out. Those are traditional benefits. But there is nothing that takes these benefits away from nearshoring. Nearshoring offers you the same thing. They offer capacity, they offer capabilities, cost effective, you'll be surprised. And of course, mature delivery processes over the last 20, 25 years. But what they also offer is collaboration. The collaboration between, real-time collaboration between teams, the convenience of working in close proximity. And so even though software is not a physical good, like appliances, like TVs, and you don't have to move the bits and bytes physically, the ability to solve problem together is a huge benefit. And of course, not to mention transferring special equipment or test devices is so much quicker. There have been so many cases, so many instances where we were able to get special hardware, special devices, mobile devices to our development teams, and testing and developing quickly to meet deadlines. I can't imagine doing it if we were 12, 13, 14 hours away, and with all the travel challenges. So it's different. Nearshoring can offer, in a lot of cases, additional capabilities. Fourth, please. Okay, so that was the number one myth. Talent. 39%. Okay, so I think this is a big misperception. Our own experience, Patrick, Francisco, there is a large available pool of talent right now, and it's growing. The level of technology awareness in the next generation of population everywhere is really, really high. I'm seeing it just in the last 5 years. We've been doing it. And the desire to complete college is much stronger. There are really good jobs, and people are starting to notice that. In addition, the governments have responded by improving the STEM curriculum, increasing the capacity, and the numbers speak for themselves. The universities in Latin American countries share their students liberally with US. Bilingual education is really common. Most of the software is written in English. So it's really, I think 39% of you, I would encourage you to investigate further, maybe visit some colleges, universities. There's some world-class universities out there. There's a lot of talent looking for some great opportunities. So although it's number 4 on my list, it's still higher than the other ones, which suits the survey. So I'm going to take a little pause. I don't see a lot of questions or any questions actually. So I have a few questions for our panelists. So Francisco and Patrick, feel free to jump in. In your view, and you have experience and you have open centers in different countries, what role does geography and distance play in outsourcing decisions? How do you decide?
Okay.
Francisco?
Yeah, this is Francisco. First of all, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Geography and distance plays a very critical role in my opinion. And when I think about geography, it has to do with what's your business need and location to your current HQ, meaning your headquarters. How close is it to your HQ? And how fast of a response do you want it to be? For instance, I created a center in India about 10 years ago for user assistance, and it was about 12 to 13-hour difference, and that seems to be working because I didn't need the manuals or the information right away. But as we move closer to development, we need the code to be developed and the support at the same location. So this becomes important. So how close enough do you want to manage your business in a timely manner? And you need to do your selection very carefully. And so we look, for instance, at Argentina, Costa Rica, and we, as you, Anurag, we decided to do it in Mexico, Guadalajara. And we found, as you mentioned, there's a lot of talent, and basically that's regarding geography and distance play a critical role on your decision, and you have to think very carefully where you want to do it.
Patrick, any additional thoughts?
Well, I think it is important, and you know, as I've thought about times that I've used specifically that notion of kind of distance, as I've looked at processes that maybe weren't that large, or maybe they were very kind of complex projects that might have been complex. As an example, an agile development project where coordination was going to be really critical, and I would like the opportunity to, you know, kind of send folks more frequently to collaborate together. Those types of processes, those types of projects actually lend themselves a lot more to a nearshore alternative. I mean, it just becomes a lot easier to be successful. And I think a lot of people will, you know, you talk a little bit about folks that have had success in Latin America around using, you know, kind of agile methodology development, web, mobile app development, those types of things. It really, and I think the proximity plays a big role in the much greater success that you're going to have there.
Thank you. I have one more question before we move on, both of you. What challenges did you encounter as you built up your nearshore teams? You did in El Salvador and in Mexico.
Yes.
Any
Sure.
challenges you can share?
Sure, Anurag, the challenges that I had about 6 years ago was finding the English talent in Mexico. It took me a little while to build it and to find it. But as you mentioned, the government has put a lot of effort in making sure English becomes, they have increased the scores for the test. The universities, we have worked very closely with the universities to make sure that the courses are done in English. And we are in the last few years been very, very happy with the English, with the language, with the understanding, speaking, and writing. When we are hiring someone, we look at that they should be speaking close to a native. And there are universities like the Technology of Monterrey that are exactly top universities. In terms of opportunities, I think I wanna express something. You mentioned challenges, but I also want to express opportunities that are out there. The government in Mexico has provided a lot of subsidies. If you're a venture capital or you're starting your own company, there are new subsidies in terms of cross-off from Mexico, and I'll be more than happy to put you in contact with those people. So if you're setting something up, as you have your challenges, there are opportunities to work very closely with the government. That's it, Anurag.
Thank you. Patrick, anything you want to add?
Well, you know, I think you know, one of the
Especially between 14 years ago and now, have things changed?
well, you know, some things have changed, but many has really stayed the same. So I would tell you that, you know, one of the biggest challenges that I've had to kind of overcome on projects, whether I was with AT&T, Bell South, or now with United Healthcare, is because they're large enterprises, and most of the things we do require a fair amount of scale. So when you're going to go find, you know, 500 people or 1,000 people to do a particular task, getting to that kind of scale is a bit more challenging in Latin America. You can't. It's difficult to do that quickly. So your kind of pace of hiring on a project is likely going to be slower than it will be in India or China from an IT perspective, or certainly the Philippines from a BPO perspective. And there's a lot of projects where that's absolutely fine. In many of the projects that we do are several hundred people in Latin America, and that's not that hard to get there. You can't get there in 2 months, but you can get there in maybe 6 months. And that's probably fine for 80% of the processes.
And have things changed over time? Are you feeling it's still the same situation?
Well, I think there is more availability of talent and the availability of folks that are employable to meet the jobs that we would like. I think one of the challenges that we've kind of picked up is that the saturation of businesses trying to hire those folks is also increasing. So it's not at the rate in by any means that it is in India or the Philippines, but I mean, there's competition for all the top talent.
I agree. Some people tell me that Guadalajara is becoming the next Bangalore in terms of companies moving in terms of fight for talent. And I think that's positive. The reason companies are moving in is because they see the talent available, and what I've seen is continuing to grow, and there's a lot of emphasis. Even though we are a small company, we also work very closely with the universities. In fact, last semester we taught a course on Xamarin, a programming language to help build mobile applications. And we are seeing that in Guadalajara, we are seeing that in Leon. So things are happening, and I think this level of awareness is putting some actions in place. Let's move on. We are at almost half past the hour. Let's get to the fifth one, which the fifth and sixth are kind of relate to the number 2 and number 3 in the poll. So I just want to address that. I know this came to be the number 3. The security question keeps coming up. It comes up in the press, and even some recent movies, some of you might have seen them, they do tend to spread false perception. Now, I personally don't have experience traveling in all the Latin American countries, but me and my teams, including women, travel to Mexico all the time. And if I didn't stop them, they would travel even more. Sometimes the budget gets in the way, not security. I personally have traveled to El Salvador last month, and I often wonder what the fuss is all about. Now, it could be because I'm more familiar with all this. I grew up in India, near the border with Pakistan, and there's always some action going on, so maybe I'm a little used to stuff, but I think it's all really overblown. In fact, we have some employees from India and Pakistan in Guadalajara who have moved to Mexico. And let me tell you, safety is the last thing on their mind. Maybe finding pure vegetarian food is more important there. But they don't talk about security. I feel the media exaggerate. You see the numbers. And there are places in every city, even in US, where prudence is required. And when you compare pure numbers, there is no significant pattern or difference. These are beautiful countries, wonderful people, and actually I feel their frustration when the security perceptions come up. And that's my own personal experience. I'll have Patrick and Francisco jump in. And if you think about it, in our own backyard, there are frequent shootings going on, and there are professors in University of Texas right now who are afraid to go and teach in classes because students can now carry guns in classrooms. So I guess there are no more C's and D's to the students anymore. So I think it's overblown. The numbers speak for themselves. This graph, we'll be happy to share it with you. Have numbers from multiple places. And this is an independent study. And like anywhere in the world, including your own hometowns, location knowledge is essential. So I think it's overblown. And a lot of times we feel people who talk about security are precisely the people who have never been there, and all they do is read the newspapers and make their own judgments. We have had some folks who didn't want to travel until we paid them, and then they say, I wish I'd been there earlier. So I think it's a big myth. Personally, still alive. I've been to Mexico perhaps 2 dozen, 3 dozen times. So let's move on to the next one, the one which was also high up in the poll. Okay, cost. So that was number 3. Okay, so this myth, I guess, is also a myth. And sometimes I ask, what does expensive mean? Is it cost per hour or total cost per project? Is labor the only cost? As you all know, there are many other tangible and intangible costs that add up. There's travel cost, cost associated with time differences, cost with on-site management. For those of you who may have large outsourcing teams, there is a significant component of is on-site to manage the off-site team because of the time zones and all that. Uh, it's the cost associated to missing deadlines because of misunderstanding over the emails and late night Skypes, or what is the cost of not able to have face-to-face meetings because of cost, distance, and sometimes, frankly, visa requirements. I've had a number of people who couldn't make the trip to China and India because the visa took time or they were uncomfortable sending their passports in. Especially for Mexico, it's like when you have to travel, you pick your passport and you go. No visas needed. You need a meeting in Chicago tomorrow and someone needs to go from Mexico. It's a 4-hour nonstop, $400, and it just happens. Try that from one of those faraway places where it takes 24 hours, thousands of dollars, more if you're a vice president and need business class, and then 2 days to get over the jet lag. And no trip can be less than a week long. It all adds up, and it should be included as part of the delivery cost, not just hidden in this strange account category called T&E. And then we need to make sure that it's all apples to apples. And I don't know if you have been following the market. Latin countries have become suddenly even more cost effective. Just look at the major exchange rates in case you haven't done it in the last month. And then you'll suddenly realize that it's really not expensive at all. It's actually less expensive, and not counting all the conveniences and other overheads, which in my view, in my experience, tends to really get hidden in, and all people look for is the labor cost and FTE, and not the total cost of having a person or having a team far away with complete management, with complete HR, with complete stuff you need around managing large teams, and not counting expat expenses and all that. It's really, it can all add up really quickly. And I'll have Patrick and Francis jump in, but let me get to the next 2 minutes so we have some time for Q&A.
So on the just as you move into the next one, I was just going to say that the kind of the all-in cost calculations. There's been a lot, obviously, and available from I think there's even some spreadsheets that are available for download that can calculate kind of all of those. But it's kind of the load on doing offshore work in kind of India or the Philippines, the management load, apart from maybe having to travel frequently, you have the kind of added costs of higher turnover, which can sometimes be double what I've experienced in Latin America. And if you're just going to do a 6-month project, that may be not a big deal. But if you're going to try to build a capability over time and manage that over time as part of your business, the added ability to travel a little more frequently and to talk at the same time zones, not to have people either, I've got, obviously plenty of projects going on in India today, and again, I was on the phone at 4 a.m. this morning doing, business reviews with those folks. And, if you don't have to do that, you probably don't want to.
And that was precisely the reason where we moved from having a delivery center in India to something which I can have a life. Sometimes I don't like working 7/24 and 7 days a week. So it makes a big difference. So let's talk about this next one. So the myth, 24-hour time difference helps round-the-clock development. So long time ago, in 1990s, in the last century, waterfall development was the norm. Analysts would write details, requirements, specifications, screenshots, logic, everything was really well documented. And after long reviews, the documents were shipped off to a development and testing team. And sometime in the future, the system would come out, all built, tested, and hopefully bug-free. And that allowed the 12-hour time difference to actually become a selling point. And then the development could happen in remote places, hidden from the users, and no one cared where things were happening because everything was so well documented. Not anymore. We know it, you know it. The base of development has changed. Competitive pressures have changed. Concepts like agile development, minimum viable product, lean development, they all require that stakeholders and development teams collaborate in real time, face to face, and get success weekly, not yearly. And this is something which Nearshore allows. We have seen that, we've experienced that. Midnight project manager to project manager calls are not enough. Patrick talking to probably his equivalent in India sometimes may not be enough. Now Patrick has to translate all that knowledge to someone who is actually doing the work and who doesn't like waking up at 4 a.m. The developers in US, they don't like to come up before 10 a.m. We have a lot more communication tools. I know it, you know it. You don't have to do faxes anymore. You can do emails, you can do Skype, you can do webinars like what we are doing now. But it cannot replace the value of face-to-face, real-time human interactions. And so it's really a myth that 12-hour allows you 24-hour development. I think if anything, it can impede. Any thoughts on that, Patrick and Francisco? The time zone thing? I know you touched a little bit just now.
I think that I just want to stress what Patrick mentioned. It gets very tiring for the management team to start working with the 12-hour difference. It's either an early morning or late night. And at the beginning, it's fine, but eventually burns out the management or the group leaders. And I think that although we've been having the face-to-face communication, I think that a lot of people would rather do closer interactions. And so when I build the Mexico team, we've been shifting some more resources into Mexico because of a 3-hour difference. So it does play a significant role, and especially with the people that have to interact with them daily. That's it.
Patrick, anything to add?
Well, if you're thinking about things too that have to do with more BPO or analytics, that ability to kind of converse and build a virtual team across geographies is really important. It kind of is akin to kind of an agile development team across boundaries as well. So that becomes really pretty critical. And if you're coordinating in a technology project with developers, testing teams, business SMEs, having everybody kind of on a generally close to the same time zone is just a huge advantage.
Thank you. And that has been our experience. So the fact that if a bug shows up during the lunchtime, by 2 p.m. it's fixed. You don't have to send an email and log it, and hopefully someone will pick it up when they come back to work. And if for some reason if they miss that bug, now you're talking another 24 hours. So suddenly something which could have been done in 2 hours has taken 48 hours. And so I think things have changed, things have evolved. And let's go to the next one. I still see audience very quiet, so I hope they're understanding what I'm saying. Otherwise, I'll be calling them one by one, and there's a question test they'll be doing after this. It's the last one. Last but not the least, some of our clients have told us, we have heard about it, that nearshore implies compromise either on quality or processes. And perhaps it was true 20 years ago when a few countries took early lead in ensuring outsourcing and quality go together. India and Philippines, they were the leaders then. But now the quality and maturity processes are a given. No service provider, no service team can afford to provide or deliver bad quality. And nearshore providers and nearshore companies who are doing nearshore, they have already learned how to deliver quality. And in the other thing we are finding out is, in addition to companies increasing their own nearshore captive services, most leading service providers from India and Eastern Europe and US have started having their own operations in nearshore countries and expanding rapidly. And they are bringing whatever gaps in quality and maturity processes were there into the ecosystem. Uh, so we are seeing that there's no significant difference between quality from one traditional outsourcing to nearshoring. And I've had teams in India myself, and now I have teams in Mexico. And I can't say or with a straight face that there is a big difference. Yes, there may be some scale differences, but in terms of quality, I think they have been addressed. Knowledge transfer continues to take place with the movement of people. And as other Latin American providers move, other providers move into Latin countries, they're bringing the knowledge. But the main thing is nearshore not only matches the process and quality, they add additional value like we've been talking about. One is, of course, time zone alignment facilitates collaboration, and distance and time makes teams more responsive. Language challenges and cultural barriers are reduced. I'm in Texas, and half the population speaks Spanish. It's a lot easier for them to collaborate with people who sometimes they can speak the same language very, very comfortably, not just from here to there, but from there to here. When they travel here, they're home, at home. We are also finding that off-site management versus on-site management is better balanced. You don't need to have 20% of your team on site just to manage the 75-80% of the team off site. Sometimes you can do away with 0% because of the travel and all. So that's what some of the 8 myths I have experienced personally. I'm sure there are other things which may be on your mind. I'm happy to have some questions. And so just since I don't see a lot of activity or any activity, let me ask a few things.
Sorry, Anurag, this is Rebecca. We do have some questions.
Oh, you do? Okay, I don't see them.
Okay. So if that's okay, I can start reading them and addressing them, but just by the order they came in.
Sure.
So how do you decide between using nearshore versus using work visas to send offshore professionals onshore?
I'll be happy to answer, but Patrick, and since you have been doing teams in India and all, do you want to address that? And I have some good answers myself. And Francisco.
Sure. Well, visas are a pretty rare, valuable commodity when you can get those, and I tend to save those for teams where I'm going to maybe eventually try to find that talent a longer-term home in my organization. So while we do a little bit of the work around trying to find that talent, maybe bring them to the U.S. to participate in the team, it doesn't happen quite as frequently. The other thing I'll tell you is that I'll use kind of nearshore teams and talent when I know that the maturity of the project, maybe the requirements aren't quite as locked down, and I'm going to have a little bit more coordination and maybe even a little more cultural affinity on a particular project. A good example of that is mobile apps. If you've traveled around the world, I bet you know that folks in China and the Philippines use their mobile phones way differently than they do in India, which also is way different than they use in the Americas. And I do see a fair amount of consistency across the Americas on how mobile apps and phones are working. So that's an example where that closeness and cultural affinity kind of trumps the ability to get scale.
Francisco, and I can pitch in.
I basically don't do much on that. On the visas, I basically for for Mexico, it's been very easy. I mean, it, it's there is no need of a real visa unless they come to the States and then I do it once. But otherwise, it's been they travel very frequently without the visa.
So I think what Francisco was saying is that Mexico is part of NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. So traveling back and forth is really easy. Uh, Having direct experience with the teams in India, one is the cost. It's not inexpensive to fly a team. And then you can fly a team in for a day or two. You have to bring them at least in for a week, possibly 2 weeks. It takes two days to get over the jet lag, and then you have to stay back, and then that adds to the cost. And then the time getting the visas can take a lot of time. It's a lot easier to just fly someone on a short-term notice, or in a number of cases where a client had a choice of traveling alone versus flying in 6 people on the team on site for knowledge transfer. Guess what happened? The client said, I'm going to go alone. It's a 3-hour nonstop, 4-hour nonstop, few $100, and I'll stay in Guadalajara and work with the 6-person team versus trying to fly them in so they can learn the business. That, you save time, you save cost. I think is a big factor. If you are thinking of having to fly people from these faraway places, cost and time will add up. Rebecca, what's the next one?
Sure. Let's address the following question. What potential frontier markets or pre-emerging markets do you see emerging over the next 12 to 18 months in Latin America? And and I think the second part of that question is, do you see Cuba as a potential BPO market servicing U.S. customers?
I can take one. One market that's been increasing a lot on technology and putting a lot of emphasis from the government has been Colombia. Colombia has been pushing a lot in terms of IT. HP has recently built a huge campus in Colombia and is building a lot of facilities down there. So Colombia seems to be a place where there is the talent and it seems convenient enough. Distance-wise, it's still it takes a while. There's no direct flight from the States. In terms of Cuba, I've been into Cuba, and I think that they have more important things to worry about than nearshoring. To tell you the truth, they need food. They need basic needs. So Cuba is definitely not an area, and their English is not as great either. So.
Well, one of the things we have noticed is there are 600 million consumers in LATAM market, not counting Brazil, which is Portuguese. We have had a number of clients who have actually leveraged us to expand into LATAM, the offerings, their services, their products. Mexico continues to grow. They are probably the fastest growing economy in LATAM, although they're part of North America. The one thing we have noticed is the rise of second-tier cities in Mexico. So Mexico has Monterrey and Mexico City and Guadalajara. Those are like India's Mumbai and New Delhi and Chennai. But then there's a second set of cities which have come up, which is providing scale and opportunities, not just from the delivery side, but also from the consumption side. Cities like Carretero and Merida and Hermosillo and beyond, Aguascalientes, they are very well developed, nice cities, over 1 million folks in population. And that is also providing the scale on both the sides, the delivery and consumption. So taking existing products and services, taking them to LATAM is a big opportunity, definitely. And also leveraging the scale, which is evolving. Colombia, Peru is evolving well. El Salvador is evolving. And a lot of them are doing these trade missions to increase the level of awareness. precisely for the same reason as how HP might have gone to Columbia. We are kind of running a bit out of time. So, Rebecca, any the last two questions?
Sure. We can either do, let me see. How do you see nearshore collaborating with offshore to serve a client? Both sides have their own advantages. I think clients want their work around the clock. So.
Patrick, you're doing it now, so you'll be the best.
Well, I think that as we've talked a lot about that. If you've got a larger enterprise, larger operation, you may have operations around the world anyway. I'm certain that GE and Dell and HP are obviously Microsoft doing those things anyway. So you have infrastructure that's going to allow you to do that, and it doesn't make it any easier if you're one of the ones doing it. But for those, again, smaller projects, more specific focused efforts, or things where you're beginning, I mean, it just really does make sense. And then when you think about the startup costs of kind of not just the dollars or not just the money you're going to spend, but the startup costs as far as management attention. I mean, it's again, as Francisco mentioned, it's a lot easier to get 5 people from a team to come to Austin or come to San Diego to meet with you and really iron things out pretty quickly. And it's no visa issues, there's none of that, so it works out pretty well.
Thank you. Rebecca, do you want to close up the... Thank you so much. I enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. Feel free to reach out to me, Rebecca, and we will be making these presentation available. Rebecca, anything to close out?
No, I just want to say, well, that we will do the recording of this webinar and send the presentation out, no later than tomorrow. And I want to thank you, Anurag, Patrick, and Francisco for making this possible. This is just another effort of Nearshore Executive Alliance to continue to present Latin America as a service provider. So we could not ever do this without you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for for sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a great afternoon.
You too.